Thanks for joining the Applied Security Engineering channel. Welcome back. Today we will be covering up the topic of risk management. Risk management is a big topic, what we are just covering up from the CSSLP perspective. I'm just talking about like the some terminologies which you're going to hear a lot in upcoming domains. So we are just covering the very basic stuff from for the risk management. The first one concept is like an asset. An asset is anything valuable to the business, like customer data, an application, or even the source code itself. Those are all can be a part of an asset. A patient data database containing medical records, mobile banking app, source code stored in a GitHub. Those are all an asset for a company. Um, so the next one is the vulnerability. A vulnerability is a weakness, like something that should not be there, but is. Um, just taking an example, like for example, an API that does not check user permission, or web app vulnerable to SQL injection, hard-coded credential in a source code. So these are all the vulnerabilities that exist in your asset. And then we come to the threat. Threat is an action or event that can take advantage of the weakness in your system, exploit the vulnerability. um, SQL injection exploiting a weak input field, malware exploiting an unpatched server, phishing email targeting employees. So these are all examples of a threat. Threat source and agent is who or what is behind the attack. That can be an external attacker, that can be a malicious insider, automated bot, or a malware, natural disaster. Yeah, it is a threat, or a threat source agent. So these are all an example of the threat source or agent. And then next we come up with the some other terminologies like the probability. Probability answer the question, like how likely this is to happen. Obviously, like high probability, public facing login page with no rate limiting. That is like that is kind of like high probability, like the system can be exploited. Low vulnerability, like low probability in an internal application behind the VPN and MFA. So that defines like the probability of that an attack. Impact is about how the bad things get if attack succeeded. That can be a financial loss due to fraud, regulatory fines, GDPR, loss of customer trust, which is a big thing. As you guys see last year when the Mark and Spencer incident happened, lost lot of customer, including myself, was used Mark and Spencer for online shopping. Um, and then when this happened, I stopped using Mark and Spencer altogether because I don't trust their system. I don't want to give my personal details to them, and my card details especially. So that has like a big impact on an organization. Controls are what we put in place to reduce the chances of a damage, like chances or damage of an attack. If we take an example, for example, you have a web application, online login system, you can implement MFA. So you have a password plus MFA. You are asking user input, so you should implement the input validation to prevent the injection attacks. Encryption for data in transit, and in rest as well. And then you have a monitoring and alerting system in place. So these are all the controls you can add in an application to reduce the risk of a threat. And then like we talk about like you need to remember some of the formulas over here, like the total risk, that is like the probability multiplier times impact. High probability, high impact, high risk. Low probability, low impact, low risk. So risk is something is not a random, like It is a combination how likely something is going to happen and how bad it would be. So that's how you can calculate the risk. And then we talk about the residual risk. That is, um, residual risk is like what the leftover after we have done our best effort. Just taking an example, even with the MFA and monitoring, phishing risk still exists. Even with the backups, ransom may cause short downtime. So companies try to implement multiple controls, but whatever like the risk left over after implementing those controls, we call that the residual risk. This one is a very important slide. You guys. I mentioned in my previous videos as well. I don't want you to sabotage anything. Like you don't need to memorize, sabotage any controls or like any concepts. You just need to understand the concept. But this is the slide. Those are the formulas I would like you to sabotage. Because I remember like both times when I did my CSSLP, as I mentioned before, I passed the exam second time. I remember like 3 to 4 questions based on those two formulas, single loss expectancy and the annual loss expectancy. It is a very important concept to calculate those things. It's pretty easy, single loss expectancy is, like asset value, whatever the value of your asset, multiply by the exposure factor. And then, annual rate of occurrence is an expression of the number of incident from a particular threat that can be expected in a year. This is often just a guesstimate, like in the field of software security, and thus should not be, like carefully considered. Whereas, like the annual loss of expectancy is an indicator of the magnitude of a risk in a year, and is a product of single loss expectancy times annual rate of occurrence. So, if incidents happen at one time, what will be the impact of that incident, and what is the annual loss expectancy? So those are the two formulas I would like you to sabotage it, because there are a lot of questions based on those two questions on those two formulas. Thank you. It's a short video. Next one I will be covering up the questionnaire in domain 1 from the exam perspective. Thank you.